Morning, folks. Today's soap is brought to us from Soap Commander. This one here is called Gusto, and this one here has it's a scented raspberry lemonade. Very unique scent. And as you can tell on the label there, this is going to be a vegan version. You're going to be following up the shave with the aftershave balm. Probably use this one here off camera. It takes a little while to work it in. At least I take my time with it. Got it whipped up here in a bowl. What I got looking like here. It's well hydrated. You can smell the raspberry, and with the lemonade kind of gives it I guess you might say a tart type scent to it. This is brush I've had for a while. It came by the way of Metalworks. See if you might be able to see. That is a fishing fly that is inside the handle there. And if I remember correctly, this is a whip dog knot. But boy, definitely a unique scent, especially for this time of the morning. Going to be using a Gem G bar, and this I got a link down below. This is goes by, I guess you might say, at least a couple of different names, a heavyweight or flat top, if you will. I would like to say I got a link down below, kind of discusses a little bit of it, but it is a pretty nice little shaver. And the blade inside is a Persona blade that is Teflon coated to PTFE. That's where all that came from. I've already put a hot towel to the face this morning. Go ahead and get ready to use the Phoenix Artisan Accoutrements Ice Cube, what's left of it. It is getting quite a bit smaller, as you can see. It is, I guess you might say it'll be interesting to see how far it goes into this year, if it makes it through Christmas or not. The smaller it gets, the harder it is to hang on to. So we'll see how many times I drop it as it gets smaller. Here in Oklahoma, the weather is, it's to a degree, I guess, it's trying to get cooler. At least for most of the days that has been forecasted out. We're not looking at a heat index over 100 degrees, even though it gets close from time to time. But it's trying to cool off just a little bit. In other words, instead of being over 100, closer to 90, it's cooler. Still warm, but cooler. I think there's some days that are hitting the mid-90s and whatnot, and then it warms up. But anyhow, that's how things are shaping up weather-wise around here. It's still fairly warm. Not a whole lot of rain. Everything is pretty crunchy around here as it goes for the vegetation. I think they said 99% of Oklahoma is in a drought type situation, which, as long as I've lived in Oklahoma, that seems to be, how can you say, the norm? We usually, at least part of Oklahoma, usually ends up in a drought type situation. It seems like. This scent is I guess you might say, might be considered a fun scent or a playful scent. Not serious. In other words, tobacco or anything quite like that. It's just a fun one to use. Today is Friday, so why not, right? You see it whips up pretty good. I should probably mention, I do mention it from time to time, my lathering, I guess you might say, years ago I worked out 3 different bowls, 3 different brushes, 3 different kind of soaps on how I whip up my lather. And my lathering works like this. This is how I work my lather up. It's in a swirling motion. And that's how I work mine up, and then I paint it on. So certain number of brushes will work pretty well for me. And the reason why I say that, in other words, ones with a lot of loft are the kind of brushes that work well when it comes to this sort of lathering. The loft sometimes might be considered a little floppy, but for me it works well because of the way I lather. Now, if you're face lathering, that kind of loft probably won't work all that well. but I swirl and paint, so a tall loft works well for me. And typically the bristles don't become quite the issue with that kind of application, if you will. Because even bore knots, even though they're a brand new brush that's not broke in, uh, as it goes for the pokiness of the bristles don't seem to be quite the factor unless you're face lathering. And then, yeah, for me, trying to do that on my neck is not going to work out well. When it comes to blades for this kind of shaver, Treat Supers, which are very hard to find because I don't think they're made anymore. That's where I got my start with the blades that I really do like. And then I finally found some gym blades that were Teflon coated. And for me, since those are easier to find, those are my go-to blades. Those kind of blades work well for me. Now, carbon steel blades, I did try them, PAL, and those blades don't work well. They don't work well for me at all. Not at all. Didn't even get through the first pass, and nope, got to change them. Too tuggy for me. Not a smooth shave at all. But Teflon coated ones are pretty nice. My technique when it comes to using this particular razor, as well as it is for a lot of gym razors, I pretty much hold it fairly flat. You can kind of see how that angle is more or less preset. If you hold it fairly flat to that angle, you might find that your shaves will go a little bit smoother. You can adjust it up off the cap a little bit if you want to suit your needs, but for me, holding it pretty close to that cap at that angle, my shaves go really well. Most of the time I don't end up with any weepers, nicks, cuts, or anything quite like that. On occasion I might end up with one, especially if I'm using a Gym Micromatic clog proof. If I don't keep that angle just so, sometimes I'll end up with a weeper, but a very close shave though. I guess you might say one of my favorite when it comes to the Micromatics is the Flying Wing, or what they refer to as a bullet tip. That shaver there seems to work well for me. Seems to be really easy for me to use and consistently get smooth, comfortable shaves. You can kind of see this lather, the way I've got it whipped up, works well for me. It goes on easy. Plenty of slickness. And with a blade like this, slickness is going to be pretty important. In my opinion, it helps with keeping the shave smooth. For me, a thicker lather doesn't work that well with this particular blade. In other words, I've learned over time. Tried different ways, different lathers, and for me, a well-hydrated lather works best. In other words, slickness is more of the concern. And this one here, this Soap Commander works just fine for me. And for those that, if it matters, yes, it says vegan. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I don't know that Soap Commander offers a tallow version. I could be wrong. Maybe I just missed it over time. But as far as I know, they don't offer a tallow version. If you're wondering if you can accidentally pick one that's got tallow in it, I don't think they have one. They may have had one in the past, and maybe I just missed it, but as far as I know, they don't have one. Very smooth shave so far. Lathering up for against the green pass. Typically with a blade like this, a shaver like this, if I'm going to end up with a weeper, so yeah, I usually don't notice it, don't find it until after the rinse and the alum block, and right at going into the sometimes the witch hazel, but usually the aftershave. In other words, it's late in the shave before I really notice that I've got a weeper. So, and I think it has something to do with the alcohol opening up that pore, that part that where the shave didn't go so well. But I do have blemishes here and there, so I still got one over here that seems to pop up every once in a while. It's visibly, I don't really notice it, but throughout the shave is when it, starts to be noticeable. Sometimes through the shave I can feel it when the blade goes across it. But I don't, not today. I didn't notice it today. That would have been right about there where I should have noticed it if there was going to be an issue, but it didn't feel like it to me. Don't know about where you're at, but I know here locally, here pretty soon school will be starting. They've already had the, excuse me, tax-free weekend for buying clothes and whatnot, school supplies, getting ready for school, college. My son, his actual, you might say, first day of class, the way I understand it, will be on the 15th. In other words, coming up here pretty soon. I guess a lot of orientation for the freshmen is what's been going on this week. Adjusting to the, I guess you might say, the new bed. Some of us can kind of sort of relate that when you get a new bed, or when you're sleeping in a bed in a new location, I should say, not only is the bed different, but it's pointed maybe in a different direction than what you're used to sleeping. So you're a little disorientated when you first wake up, especially if the room is really dark. Got just a little bit of stinging right over here, just a little bit, not a whole lot. Still a very nice shave. I get good shaves with the G-Bar. I really do. Humphreys Witch Hazel. Once you learn the pressure, the angle with one of these, and find the blade that works best for you, you can get pretty good shaves. Close, efficient. I know some people do prefer the carbon steel blades. Wow, for me, they were just like, not a chance. It was not a good shave at all. I'll go ahead and take a moment and put just a little bit of the aftershave balm in my hand. Show you what it looks like. So in other words, it's upside down. In other words, it's not a runny aftershave balm, and a little bit will go a long ways. Let's take a moment here and show you what it looks like working in. It does not take a whole lot. It doesn't take a whole lot of time to work it in. Like that little bit right there, and I'll put a little bit more on my face and do the other side, but I usually take my time, work it in, and for me, this is a pretty nice aftershave balm. It works well for me. I had a great shave this morning. Hope everybody's doing well. Stay healthy, stay safe, and smooth shaves to you.